Good evening, everyone. My name is Takiwa Smith. I'm founder and executive director of Science, Engineering, and Mathematics Link Incorporated, and I want to welcome you to tonight's Teen Science Cafe. The Teen Science Cafe is a program of our Math and Science Career Academy, and the goal of this program is to expose teens to STEM careers as they are making important decisions about their next steps in their educational level. So, if they're in middle school, they're making decisions about if they want to go to a magnet program, during high school, what out of school time STEM programs they want to participate in. If they're in high school, they're making decisions about what they want to major in college, as well as if they want to pursue certificates, if they want to take care of any job shadowing program, summer research programs, additional out of school time opportunities. And we believe that the best way for youth to learn what they want to do when they grow up is to see someone that is in that field, something that they may be interested in, even they don't know what they quite want to do. If they're interested in math, if they think they like to build stuff, if they like to play with animals, all of those things. Just one interaction with a STEM professional, learning about their journey and what they do every day can totally change the trajectory of a child's life, which is why we have this event to provide positive role models in STEM for youth. So this is a special Teen Science Cafe. They're all special, but February is special, not just because it's Black History Month, although I believe Black history is world history and Black history is 365. But this month is the month that we have National Engineers Week. And so for both of our cafes, we are having engineers. I am totally biased as a chemical engineer. National Engineers Week is my favorite time of the year. Engineering is the favorite STEM discipline I like to expose youth to. So I am very happy that the focus of this month cafe is engineering. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Carlin Pounders, our program coordinator, who's going to introduce tonight's speaker.
Thank you, Tequila. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. So tonight's speaker is Kevin Dillion. Sorry, Kevin. Kevin is a growing engineering professional who blends passion and professional experience in designing, testing, and analyzing flight control systems and air vehicles for commercial and military platforms with system requirements development, system integration, and real-time simulations. Kevin holds a bachelor's degree in Aerospace and Mechanical Engineering, plus a master's degree in System Engineering. Kevin is also a proud member of the National Society of Black Engineers. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Kevin, who is going to talk to us about engineering in the aerospace industry.
All right. Thank you, Tequila, and thank you, Carlin, for having me tonight. So I'll start off by saying if there are any questions at any time that I'm speaking, please use the chat and type them in. The more questions you ask, the better I can tailor this to give you the answers that you want and give you the information that you want, so to help you make a better decision going forward and different things that you can do from now until forever and to get to where you want to go. So I'll lay this out as I'll give a brief introduction up front about who I am and where I am now. I'll walk you through my journey from elementary to high school, and then I'll walk you through my journey from high school to college and through college and how I got to be an engineer. And then I'll kind of walk you through so far my professional experience as an engineer. So briefly, once again, my name is Kevin Dillion. As you heard, have a degree in Aerospace and Mechanical Engineering, as well as a master's in Systems Engineering. And I'll provide some, I'll say, definition for those engineering disciplines as I go. Currently, I work as a systems engineer at Boeing in St. Louis, Missouri. So backing up, how did I get interested in engineering, STEM, math, and science? Um, I always attribute it, or should I say, my dad would always say he's an engineer at heart, even though he's in the counseling field. And so, one of the things that we used to do as a kid was we used to, stand outside at night and look at the stars. And we talk about the stars. We talk about different planets that were up there, and we try to figure out how do you get there? What do you know? What can you do to get there? And then my dad is also big on watching PBS. If it was for me to listen to rap music versus watch PBS, he was gonna push me to watch PBS. And so we just so happened to be watching a show, a special on, they were talking about a space parachute or a space elevator, and he was like, how does that work? And then for whatever reason, like, I knew part of the answer, and I answered it before PBS said it, and then PBS says it, and he looks at me with this look like, how in the world did you know this? I'm probably about, I would say, about 8 years old at this point. He's like, how in the world did you know that? And I said, well, it's a parachute, so it has to open up and it has to come back down. He's like, that's a very simple explanation. And I didn't realize that. So ever since then, like, realizing that I was kind of had that passion, always have been good at math and numbers. And when I say good at numbers, it's like, I can remember numbers pretty well. Uh, but also with science experiments, like, that was like the better part of my elementary days were, doing math homework, or, doing a science project. So going through elementary school, my parents realizing that, I was interested in math, interested in science, didn't really know anything about engineering. I would say I have one engineer in my family, and that's my uncle on my dad's side. But we never really talked about what he did, at work on a daily basis, to know, for me to know at 8 or 9 years old that he was an engineer. So I would say didn't really know I had any engineers in the family outside of seeing, my dad, rig things up to keep the house or keep cars running. So what we ended up doing was I attended a lot of like summer camps. So a lot of summer camps that were geared towards engineering, and not just engineering, but just like imagination, because your imagination can drive what you go out and build. If you look at the things that we have today that we didn't have 10 years ago, if you look at, we have TikTok today. No one thought about TikTok when I was a teenager. We had MySpace when I was a teenager. Facebook was just coming on the scene as I was like a junior in high school. So like, if you think about those kind of things, you think about the phone. Like, when I was up, we had the Nokia bricks. Now you wouldn't be caught dead with the phone that looks like that. Everything has to be a touchscreen. So like, if you think about those kind of things, and you're like, that's how technology evolves. So imagination drives that evolution, because like, if you can think it, you can find a way to put it together. It may not be the exact thing you want at that time, but as technology evolves, it'll evolve into that thing that you really, really want. Um, so going back to like being 8 or 9, going to camps, you asked what camps did I go to? Well, a lot of local colleges, community colleges, and universities will hold like engineering camps for elementary kids, middle school, and high school, and they will tier what you do at those camps based on your age group. Uh, so for an elementary student, you might, build a Eiffel Tower replica out of spaghetti sticks and marshmallows. When you get to middle school, it might be, let's build this remote control car. When you get to high school, it might be a little less hands-on, and it might be more imaginative and say, hey, what is the healthcare of the future looks like? For example, I did a camp actually at one of the schools that I got a degree from. That's a funny story now I think about it. The 2 degrees that I have from Missouri Science and Technology and Southern Methodist University, I attended summer camps at both of those schools as an elementary, middle school, or high school student. I just thought about that. So at SMU, I attended a camp, and the challenge was, how do you design the healthcare of the future? We weren't given any materials. It was just sit down and use your imagination. Like, what are the things that you would want? If you go into a healthcare facility today, what would make your life easier when you walk in? And one of the things that we came up with was a device that as you walk in, it scans your body. And if it scans your body, it can tell the doctors exactly what was wrong with you. So you didn't have to worry about filling out every single piece of paper to say what was wrong with you if all you had was a headache, but you didn't know why you had that headache. Um, then another camp that I went to later on where I was in high school, I actually went to Missouri Science and Technology, and they had a diversity STEM STEM camp, and we got to actually stay on campus for an entire week, live like a college student, take basic fundamental math and science courses from real college professors. You got to work with the student life staff and walk you. They gave you a tour of the campus, tour of the facilities. You got to see some of the other students that were also taking summer classes there. But you took basic math and basic science courses on a college campus. You got to do some cool projects too, using the different labs that the college offered, which is something that most high schools, if any, have labs that rival college collegiate science and math labs. So that's kind of where I got my bulk of my experience around what engineering was. My high school did not was not geared towards science or engineering or anything like that. It was just, it was a good high school, good public school, but it wasn't geared towards anything specific. So I got a lot of my engineering experience as a elementary, middle school, and high schooler through going through these camps. Also, because I'm a member of National Society of Black Engineers, I'll plug. So as a supplement to the Teen Science Cafes, you can also join NSBE Seek or NSBE Junior, which are our summer camps for elementary, middle school, and high school students to get involved in more STEM and engineering related activities. So you asked, all right, so that I did that all the way up through high school. Then you decide, well, how do I decide what major do I go into that meets my passions? So understanding that my passion was math and science, I had been to a few engineering camps, still didn't really understand what engineering was. I just equated it to, you get to build cool things. So they have a list of like, hey, if you like these type of things, or should I say, you have assessments that you can take. If you want to take them, better yet, just kind of Google what an aerospace engineer does, what type of things that they work on. Google what an electrical engineer works on. Google what a chemical engineering works on. And what I'll end up telling you later is that no matter which engineering path you take, you can end up in any given field doing anything you want, because engineering provides you, or should I say STEM related degrees provide you the mental capacity, the thought process to pretty much do anything you want and learn anything you want. So how did I decide, what to major in college? Well, once again, going back to my childhood, I realized that I was heavily interested in space. So I just started looking up, well, who deals with space as like a part of their discipline? And aerospace engineering came up. So to further define aerospace engineering, it's basically you work with anything that moves. It can be cars, it can be airplane. And when I say airplanes, that's airplanes for Southwest, American Airlines. That's airplanes that FedEx and UPS need to use. That's airplanes that our Army, Navy need to use. It can also be launching satellites. It can be spacecraft. All the new stuff that you're seeing from SpaceX and Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin, how they're sending regular people, or should I say famous people at this point, to space. It's like it's all those things. If you've ever watched, car commercials, they may show, a car sitting in a big wind tunnel. That's aerospace engineering. You're looking at how well can this car, drive straight ahead into wind and keep its gas mileage optimized so that you're not having to fill up every 5 miles. So I just kind of looked at that and decided, all right, aerospace engineering was it. So I just started looking at all the schools that had aerospace, engineering. And at the time, that kind of limited where I was going to go. But at the same time, I also knew I grew up in Dallas, Texas, but I knew I did not want to go to college in Texas. Being the only child, I wanted to get away, get away from Texas, get away from my parents. So using that, once again, the camp I went to at Missouri Science and Technology, they stayed in touch with me. They kept sending me, pamphlets and brochures about the school, about the curriculum. And my dad and mom fell in love with the school. I personally wanted to go to Tuskegee University. Uh, but what it came down to was financial aid. Missouri Science and Technology, because I had gone to a camp there, built a relationship with them, they provided a lot more financial aid because of that relationship uh, than I was going to be able to get from Tuskegee. And coming even from a two-parent household, we did not have the money to foot the bill for college. So financial aid was a huge driver for me to decide where I would, spend the next 4 to 5 years of my college life. So putting me into college, I would say I started off in aerospace engineering, and coming out of high school, realizing that math and science was my thing, I thought I had it. I had a really great freshman year, but that was just the fundamental math and science courses. And then sophomore year hits, and that's when I start the aerospace courses. And when I say sophomore year hit like a ton of bricks. There were classes that drove me absolutely crazy. And you're like, how in the world do I get through this? Well, the same way you've gotten through every other challenge in your life. You buckle down, you focus, you show your discipline, and then you ask for help. The best thing that I can give you as advice is ask for help at any point that you need it. Do not be ashamed to ask for help, because no one has gotten where they are without asking for help. And if they tell you that they did, I would question how they actually did that. Because if they did, they should write a book and they'll be a trillionaire based on that. So as a sophomore, I actually failed my first class probably ever, and I had to retake it. But with the way that the engineering curriculum is set up at my undergrad, uh, there are prerequisites, meaning if you have to pass certain classes in the fall in order to be eligible for other classes in the spring. Because I failed a class in the fall, I wasn't eligible for a class in the spring, so that put me back a year. So that's where the mechanical engineering degree came into play. So I sat down with my college counselor and I said, all right, I already have to be here another year anyway because of the way the curriculum falls. What can I do to make this, even better for myself than just coming out with one degree? And one thing that they told me was, well, if you add the mechanical engineering degree, because mechanical and aerospace are so closely related that you double up on the classes anyway, it would only take me an extra 15 credit hours, which is about a extra semester, to get the mechanical degree and the aerospace engineering degree. And those are not I know some people may call that like a dual degree or a double degree. They're two separate, at this point for me, they were two separate degrees. So I walked away with a bachelor's in aerospace engineering, and then I also walked away with a separate bachelor's in mechanical engineering, all because I failed one class, and that put me back a year. So when they say sometimes, a setback, can be a comeback for something stronger, that's like a living testament of that. And all that did was it created more job opportunities, and it widened my knowledge of what engineers can actually do. Like, it showed me that, that as an aerospace engineer, I did not only have to work on airplanes. I could work on cars. I could work on pretty much anything that I wanted to do. So through college, another way that you expand your engineering knowledge through college is not just through your classes, not just through labs. It's through internships, it's through externships, it's continuing to do camps. At this point, you can be the camp counselor for high school, middle school, and elementary kids that are coming to your college or any community organization that you're involved with, and teach STEM related stimulated activities, stimulated events, whatever you want to get involved in around STEM, do it at that level, because then you get to apply the things that you're learning in your classes and your labs, and you have to break them down in more simple terms, and that shows your true understanding of what you're learning. If you can break it down and explain it to someone who's not taking the same classes as you, uh, that shows your true understanding of something. Uh, so things that I did throughout college to prepare myself to become an engineer were I got involved in another diversity-centered organization that helps college students find internships at large corporations. It's called Inroads. So what Inroads does is you apply to them, you create a resume, you create a cover letter, and you apply through them, and they then reach out to their partnerships, which can be other engineering companies, and through that application process, they take you through interviews. They take you through mock interviews, meaning they take you through the preparation process on how to research the company, how to understand what the company is looking for in an intern, and then how to tailor your resume so that you hit all the key points that these companies are looking for, and you're presenting yourself as someone who has more experience than you actually do, because you're coming so well prepared to these interviews and to the position. So through Inroads, I received my first internship with Sikorsky Aircrafts, and they build helicopters. So I got to go from a kid, single child from Dallas, Texas, got to go to undergrad in small Rolla, Missouri, which is not too far from St. Louis. Then I got to do my first internship in Hartford or Stratford, Connecticut. Never had been on the East Coast before in my life, but I got a chance to travel there and make really good money as a second year college student going through his second summer. And so from there, I did good work there, so they invited me back again. Not to mention, as a part of that internship, I was awarded a scholarship through one of their diversity programs. So that's the other thing. As you get into school, you don't want to pay for a school on your own or by yourself. You want to reach out to every person or every organization you have in your network to get funding for your college. Even in college, keep asking for more funding. Any undergrad or community college you attend, they have more money to give. You just have to ask. Companies, once you're in college, they have money to give. You just have to ask and present yourself and be prepared. So back to Sikorsky, doing internships, working on helicopters, working on the control system. So to kind of define what a control system is, it's everything that makes an airplane fly, stay in the air, get you from one point to the next point. It's everything that helps your car start in the morning and shut down when you're ready to shut down. When you press on the gas, you expect to go. That's all like control system stuff. You can also look at control system as being, in simulators. So if you've ever been to an amusement park and, they've had those 3D simulators where your chair moves while you're watching something on the screen that's also moving, that's the same simulators that, you can, as an engineer, you can design software for, that you can put real pilots in so they can do training before they're flying, you or your family members from one point to the next. The same with the military. Like, you build simulators specific for the military so that they can have pilots practice, how do I navigate this aircraft and shoot at an enemy target at the same time that I'm trying to keep this aircraft in the air and flying straight. So you can build those, I call them, real life adult video games as an engineer, as an aerospace engineer. I would say as any engineer. And so that's the flight control aspect of what I was doing at Sikorsky for helicopters and have been doing for a little bit now. So moving past that, I did 2 summers at Sikorsky, and then my 3rd summer, I decided to switch things up and test out a different industry, the automotive industry. And so I did an internship with General Motors in Detroit. I would say the automotive industry is very different than, aerospace and defense industry, working with the military. It's a little bit more laid back, even though you see cars coming out, every year there's a new model. It's a new model because, they're making small tweaks or whatever. But in the military, you're making big tweaks because those aircraft last for 30 to 40 years at a time. For a car, you're every 2 years, every year, you're putting out something new. So it was a different environment to kind of learn and understand how engineering works in. It's a little bit slower pace. It's more, I would say, consumer driven. So you have to really understand who's buying it, who you're building it for. Is it a family car that you're building? Is it a sports car that you're building for, two people to ride around? Like, you really have to understand that. There's also laws that you have to understand. Like, one thing that I learned from that is the amount of protection that you have to have in the hood of a car. That matters. That matters before you can put a car on the market and sell it. Um, so moving past General Motors, coming into my, senior year, having internships, having done some other things, uh, I'll take a step back. So internships and externships are not the only engineering experience you can get while in college outside of your classes. You can also take on research projects. Research projects are, you talk with your professor, they're most likely always doing some type of research, and you can be in a research assistant for them and help them in any way that they need help. Sometimes, depending on the undergrad or community college you go to, they will partner with companies, and companies will ask those institutions to help them do research. So that is also another way to create a relationship with a company that you may or may not want to work for. And what I say is, as a college student, you want to work for everybody that's hiring, because as long as you get experience, experience is king, and that will help you understand better of what you want to do, and more importantly, what you don't want to do. So as an engineer, like I said, there are so many things that you can do that is going to come a time where you do want to narrow down to say, hey, I don't like that, so I'm going to tailor my experiences away from that, and that's perfectly fine. And so getting as many experiences as you can helps you tailor down to say, I don't like that. I don't want to work in that ever again. And that's perfectly fine. So research with your professors, research with, companies that are partnering with your school, and then at the same time, just volunteering on campus, getting involved with your student life, getting, if you want to join a fraternity or sorority, getting involved in that, getting involved in other, school-based, community-based activities, because employers and want to see leadership experience, and that's a way that you can grow your leadership at the same time that you're growing your STEM technical skills. Trying to think if there are any other ways. I'm pretty sure there are more ways now. Design teams. I don't know how I'm missing that, but design teams. Design teams are college-led teams where you actually get to build something like a race car on a smaller scale and race it at competitions. My school had a solar car team, meaning that the car, if you think about Tesla or Toyota Prius, like they're electric cars, you get to build an electric car as a college student and then take it and drive it as a race, as a race car at competitions. We had, solar houses and greenhouses where you would build, a energy efficient small home, and you could take that to competitions. You had the same thing with building, with building rockets. You could build your own rocket as a team and take it places and launch it and have different avenues of what you're being graded on. There are even teams now that go to challenges, and if they win, their product gets placed on the next spacecraft that's going into space and can be, placed in the International Space Station. Could be placed into orbit as a CubeSat, which is a smaller scale satellite that we use, for our GPS. Anything, if you have a smartphone, you're connected to any satellite that's in space right now. So you could potentially be connecting your phone to a small satellite that you put into space as a freshman in college. So that's how engineering, that's how engineering works. Uh, so things that I also took part in outside of just engineering, because one thing that I was told as a college student in engineering is don't forget about art, don't forget about the fun stuff, other extracurricular activities, because you want to be a well-rounded person. Your best imagination comes from having multiple experiences that are diverse and not just math, 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 or science, science, science. So I also had the uh, privilege and the opportunity to play football while I was in college. So that also factored into my decision of where I attended. So I played football. I joined a fraternity. I joined NSBE. I was very involved in like our diversity and our diversity organization on campus that worked with all of the all different organizations to kind of pull us all together and do joint events just to make the campus feel more like home. So moving out of college, having engineering experience through internships, having leadership experience through the community-based organizations on campus. Uh, I was actually able to get a job in October of my senior year. So that means all spring semester, I was still going to class, still doing well in school, but I was on chill mode because in October, I had signed a contract with Rolls Royce to work uh, in Indianapolis, Indiana on commercial engines for $65,000 right out of college. Like that's how engineering can set you up and put you in a good position that can change your life and change, your family's life as well. And we can talk more about, starting salaries or just the income potential that STEM majors have. If you guys have questions on that, I can provide information on that as well. Um, so my first job out of college was with Rolls Royce. Yes, Rolls Royce, like the car company, but they also own an engine manufacturing company, and they provide engines to all of your favorite commercial airlines. They also provide engines to the military. So once again, working on flight controls in a test role, meaning the customer comes, they provide their requirements being a list of what they want out of an engine, how fast they want it to go, how big they want it to be, how much they want it to cost, how long it needs to be able to operate, meaning how long it can fly in a single trip, how long it can fly over its life until it has to be scrapped to pieces. Um, so with that, you get to work in a lab. You get to pull different hardware together that go on an airplane, and you get to piece them together with wires. And then you get to set up your computer, connect your computer to all that stuff, and then let the software run through all the hardware, run through your computer, and you can test the responses of those to make sure that the system as a whole is operating the way you want to. So think about it. If you don't want the engine to ever shut off before you're ready for it to. So those are the type of things that you're testing for. Uh, so due to some family obligations, I was at Rosewood for about a year and a half, and then I moved back home to Dallas, and I worked as a contractor for GE Aviation and then for Bell Helicopter. GE Aviation, I was once again doing a lot of their engine controls and engine testing for commercial engines. And then at Bell Helicopter, I was once again doing a lot of the same flight control information for helicopters. And then currently I am at Boeing doing a lot of on all that was at Bell Helicopter, that was for the military. And now I'm at Boeing doing system engineering, where you're working with the customer and really understanding what they want out of their military products. So that means you're working with the Navy, you're working with the Army, and they're having conversations with the Pentagon to make sure, hey, this is what we want over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years to be in production. Um, I'll stop there and see if there are any specific questions that I can answer before we head into our activity for tonight. as I check the chat to make sure there are no questions that I missed. Okay, seeing no questions yet. And when I say ask questions, I mean like literally ask questions. If you're on the fence about should I start at a community college for STEM, then go to a four-year university, or are there other avenues into STEM outside of going the traditional college route, like maybe getting a trade? I would say yes. I'll touch on that real quick before I go into the demo. So one of the things that makes any type of aircraft or any type of automobile work are the people that piece it together. So those people are STEM related people. They may not have a math degree, but I can guarantee there aren't many engineers that know how to put an engine of a plane together or put a car together. But people that have the background of how an engine gets put together, they are also STEM related people, and they make good money, and they can go through the trade or the vocational school and have that understanding, which is an understanding that, like I said, most engineers, if not, I would say 90% of engineers cannot do that, and it's not a part of your training. I would say even art, marketing, branding, all of that goes into STEM related things as well. For example, one thing that we hear from the military all the time is, hey, before we buy this new military jet, we need it to look cool. We need it, we want the colors to look a certain way. We want the symbol of it to look a certain way. Like we want it to really, really look cool and look pleasing to the eye. We don't want, just the plain Jane airplane that we've always had. So, picking out the color, picking out, how sleek it needs to look. Like all that goes into STEM and producing STEM related products and services. So I'll ask again, are there any questions before we start the activity? Once again, any question about anything related to STEM, related to college, related to, what you can do now at whatever grade level you are, to get more interested in math, or to be better at math or be better at science? All right. If you do have questions throughout the activity, please put them in the chat. So for this activity, I want everybody to take out a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, something to write with. I'll give you a minute to do that. All right. So what we're going to simulate here is what we call an RFP, a request for a proposal. So a customer will come to you and they will give you this RFP, and in this RFP, they will be laying out their requirements, which is their list of what they want you to make for them. So I'm going to be your customer, and I'm going to hand you this RFP, and we're going to kind of step through it. And I want you to design what I'm telling you to design, and then we'll move forward. So starting off, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to design a vehicle. So when I say design, you can draw it out, you can write it out in words, what you want that vehicle to be. So time starts now. And while you're doing that, if any questions come to mind, do not hesitate to ask. Takiwa, I think you're on mute.
I have a question, and then
Yeah,
Carlin's
go
going to
ahead.
come in with some
Go
questions.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so you have them doing an activity on doing an RFP. So is
Yes.
that usually how engineers get their projects before they just start working on stuff? Is that the main way?
Uh, I will say in defense, working with the military, yes. There are several steps before that, but yeah, the RFP is that initial contract that gets you started for a product that you want to deliver to the military.
Okay.
Yep.
So hearing what you shared was really fascinating because it sounds like you were really involved not only in the STEM um, discipline, but also in a lot of other unrelated STEM things as well.
hmm
So I did have a question about, um, how did you juggle everything?
hmm Right, right. So I always joke now that, looking back at college, the amount of free time that I had, because you're not in class all day. So you do have a little more time, but it still comes down to, time management. It comes down to, goal setting and planning out what you want to get out of college, community college, or vocational training. So if you know what you want to get out of it, then that's going to help you focus more on that. And then you are going to be willing to put the time in to do the different things that you know you need to do to better yourself. But at the same time, it's finding ways to have fun, like build fun into everything that you're doing.
And that's a great point that, youth should definitely have a passion for what they're
hmm
pursuing.
Right.
Um, so, what perhaps was your most challenging class that you had?
um, it would, so as an engineer, there's, you have to take a lot of math. So you end up going from like calculus 1, calculus 2, calculus 3. Yes, there are 3 calculus classes. So calculus 3 was one of my hardest. I would say statics was very hard. That's where you're looking at structures or architecture that is not supposed to move, and looking at its strength, looking at how much it can bend. I would say thermodynamics. So looking at the heating and cooling of different things. All 3 of those classes, like, they hurt. They hurt. But like I said, you find ways to get through them by working with your professors. Once again, coming back to ask questions. No one knows you need help unless you ask.
Wow. And what perhaps has been your most enjoyable experience thus far in your STEM
Mhm.
career?
The fact that it's been hard and I have made it through every day.
Oh,
um, it's something to definitely pat yourself on the back. But on top of that, it's seeing the things that you work on in the field. Like you see a helicopter or aircraft that you've worked on, and you see it flying, you see it doing well. Uh, that's where the gratification for me comes from. Yep. And I'll call time on that activity. All right. And I want to give you all 3 minutes to ask as many questions as you can, uh, based on what you drew or what you wrote out. If you drew a car, why did you draw the car? If you drew a spaceship, why did you draw a spaceship? Because I didn't tell you exactly what to draw. I just said draw a vehicle. So would you like to know what kind of vehicle I would like as the customer that I would like? So what questions do you guys have in these next 3 to 4 minutes? So I'll help you get started by throwing out some questions that I would want to know. First question is, what kind of vehicle do you mean, Kevin? Do you mean a car? Because the way I would design a car is not the same way I would design, an airplane for Southwest, or an airplane for, the military, or a spacecraft for that matter, or a helicopter. So those are the type of questions I would ask, like, what vehicle do you mean? And then once I know what vehicle I'm talking about, then I would say, hey, what is this vehicle for? Is this to transport 10 people? Or is this to transport 100 people? Is this do I need it to go really, really fast, or can it go really slow and still work? Um, what color do I want? How cool do I want it to look? Do I want it to look? How fast should it go? Does it need to be able to shoot at something? Does it need to be able to land on at an airport? Does it need to be able to land on a highway? Does it need to be able to land on a cruise ship or a military ship? Like, those are the type of questions you want to start asking so that you can focus in on what your customer is actually looking for, so you can provide them the best thing that you're capable of providing. So what are some other questions you might want to ask? Once again, going to the art side of the STEM, what color do you want it? Is there a reason why it has to be a certain color? Uh, do you want certain symbols on it? For example, Boeing has a aircraft that they have named after the Tuskegee Airmen, and so the Red Tails. So they have designed it, gave it the same color as what the Red Tails have. And that mattered to Boeing, that mattered to the customer because they wanted to commemorate the Tuskegee Airmen. For example, when it comes to an airplane, do you want it to be a propeller? Uh, do you want it to be able to hover like a helicopter hovers? Um, For example, if I said I wanted a helicopter, do I want it to be able to fly like a helicopter and then also tilt its rotor blades down and fly like an airplane? There are helicopters that are like that. Um, so those are just different types of questions that you'll want to ask in order to tailor what your customers are asking for you, and that goes for any STEM related field. You really want to know what your customer wants, because as an engineer, your imagination will run and you will design the next biggest thing, but it'll cost $1 trillion, and your customer only wanted something that was going to cost $1,000. And I know you guys can relate to that, because if you're an Apple product junkie, then you may be upset that Apple is always changing how you can connect your headphones, or connect to an external keyboard, or connect anything to it, because they're always changing up their ports. So it's like, does the customer really want that, or is that just Apple's engineers doing something new because it's cool and they've learned how to do it? All right. So seeing no questions, I will provide a little more information about what I'm looking for. So I am looking for a private jet, meaning I wanted to fly me and three of my closest friends from here to anywhere in Africa. And I wanted to be able to get us there in 5 hours or less. And I wanted to be blue. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to design that out, and then we'll come back and talk about it after. And once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask during this time too. So while you guys are doing that, if there are any parents on the call, I'll say that you don't have to wait to be a senior to start applying for scholarships. Uh, there are scholarship opportunities that start as early as you being a sophomore. You just have to find them, and once again, you just have to ask. You can go to any local organization, fraternity, sorority, Masons, Elks Lodge, Lions Club, like any Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Pretty much everybody provides scholarships. There are scholarships for you being a certain height. There are scholarships for left-handed people. The one thing that goes along with scholarships are that you're going to have to write essays, uh, but that's really not hard if you think if you spend 2 hours to write an essay and you get $1,000 or $500 at the least, that's $250 to $500 an hour that you just made for yourself. So if you look at it like that, writing an essay does not become a hard task.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I remember in engineering school, always every time we design something, having to have a budget. And then you just
Mm-hmm.
mentioned something about like $1 trillion and customer budget. So
Mm-hmm.
why are budgets so important um, in designing things when engineers have to design stuff and then their
Right.
projects?
Right. It comes into something that we call a design constraint. So it helps you bound and focus in on what you have to produce. So you're always given a budget, and budget is not just money. Budget is also time, and it's also the amount of people that you have to do it. So if you only have 10 people and your budget is $1 million, but you have to get it done in a year, that looks very different than a group that has a budget of $1 trillion and they have 1,000 people and they have 5 years to do something. So the products will look very different based on the budget that you have. So you have a budget because you want to be able to provide a product in a certain amount of time. You want to be able to know how many people you need to make that product or service right and what the customer wants in that certain amount of time. Uh, and you want to make money is really what it comes down to. You want to make a profit. So if you have a budget of $1,000 but you spend 5,000 to make it, you're not going to make a profit, and your business or your company is not going to last very long. So you want to make sure that you stick to the budget so that you actually make money and stay in business. All right, so time on that. So I have a few follow up questions based on that activity, and it's I would ask how did going through that activity feel? Did you feel that 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes was enough to design the aircraft that I asked for, the vehicle that I asked for? Um, did you come up with new questions the second time around as you were developing your design? Uh, and did you feel like you didn't know what questions to ask? The reason why I say that is because as a STEM professional, you run into a lot of situations where we always say you don't know what you don't know, and when in that situation, you don't know what questions you might need to ask. So one of the ways you can get around that is to prototype, and prototype means quickly build something that you can show off and get feedback on. So that prototyping can go for anything that you do. It's a part of your preparation. So let's say you have a project for school. Uh, a way to prototype that is build it, prepare, be focused, start earlier than you normally would, build it, create it, develop it, and then ask for feedback as early as possible. That way, you've built in time that you can get the feedback and you can make changes as necessary based on what your teacher or professor provides. The same is in the STEM professional world. If you don't know all the questions you should be asking or know the answer, put something together as fast as you can based on the information you do have, and then get feedback early and often. So with that, I believe that concludes our activity. So if there are any other questions, no, please ask. But other than that, I'll turn it back over to Carlin and Takiwa.
Ooh, that last thing you just said back because I feel like when I was, in school, K through 12, of course earlier than kindergarten, but you get assignments, and as you said, a great strategy is to work on the assignment as early as you can, like you said, maybe even finish it so that you can go ahead and give it to your teacher and get that feedback. So then when the deadline comes, you can get that A that you were looking
Yep.
for.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, this is one of those things, do as I say, not as I do, because I have not mastered that yet.
For sure.
Yep.
Well, it looks like we didn't have any questions. The great thing about us being able to do this virtually is that we post them on our YouTube page to live, and we do get people who watch the replays. And so the activity that you shared with us is going to be a great one for those that watch the replay. They can go through and do it if they didn't happen to join us live today.
Yep.
So with that, I think we don't have any other questions. I guess I will give you the opportunity to share any last words before we go ahead and close out.
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat, and if anyone has questions, please feel free to hit me up and I'll answer whatever questions you have.
That's awesome. I always love when our speakers are like, yes, you can reach out to me, because, this is definitely one of the ways to build relationships. You talked about relationship building tonight as well. So this is definitely a great starting point for you in order to do that. So for those that are watching, if you enjoyed tonight's program, as Takiwa mentioned, we are celebrating and recognizing National Engineers Week that takes place this month. We got started a little early, but that's okay. That's what we want, and so I invite you to check out and register for our next Teen Science Cafe, which will be on software engineering. We also have our Sim in the City that is going to be on urban green spaces happening this month. And so I will drop a link if any of those two areas sound of interest to you. And with that, we hope that you will join us for our next programs, and take care. Thank you so much, Kevin, for being our speaker, helping us kick off early National Engineers Week, and helping us recognize the awesome work that you guys do as engineers all month long.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And please, whether you're watching it live now or catch the replay, please take a moment to fill out the survey that is in the chat. All right, there's in the chat, Caroline.
Yes, I don't know. I was literally putting it in the chat and forgetting to even mention it out of my mouth. But yes, I dropped the link to those surveys in the comments in the chat for you guys to fill out.
Well, thank you again, Kevin. We hope that any future engineers were inspired by your talk, especially letting them know, sometimes people are like, STEM is hard, and they forget to have fun or have their interests outside of STEM. So thank you for bringing those points to our attention so people know, if you have other interests outside of STEM, you can explore those as well. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this cafe, and we look forward to seeing you at the next SCM Link virtual event.